Hello, everybody. I'm a practicing therapist and I'm also a doctoral student of psychology. And today I wanted to go over a topic that a lot of people are requesting. And I do think it's important because it is a very real reality to a lot of individuals' lifestyles and relationships with avoidant individuals. And that is how avoidants manipulate you. Because some avoidants do manipulate and some are very manipulative. A lot of them are not, but some of them truly are. And often this could be a combination of other issues such as a personality disorder, etc. But sometimes it's not a personality disorder and it's just a simple fact that avoidant individuals, this does not mean an excuse, by the way. It's not an excuse, but I'm just telling you why it happens. They have been alone for so long and they've had to learn to fend for themselves for so long that they don't actually realize that these things are boundary crossing because they just think about the whole world as like pawns in their world. They don't ever let anybody in. So if a person is like, oh, I could get, a cheaper, I don't have to pay for my dinner if my girlfriend pays for me. It's logical, but they could manipulate you so that they don't have to pay because they're thinking, okay, how do I save money? But it is manipulative and it's not healthy. Now, before I bring this up, I do want to preface it's not on purpose and unfortunately, very much unfortunately, some avoidants, they're a little more conscious of who they can manipulate, which means that they feel like if you let them, they can get away with it. And I didn't like saying that because I know it's going to hurt somebody's feelings, but it is the truth. And that's why I make these videos. So before we talk about some of the aspects of how to know an avoidant individual is manipulating you, I want to give you an example. And this example, I see this a lot, okay? But it is an example. And we're going to talk about it from a family situation. But I feel like it'll still help. I make these videos particularly for romantic interpersonal relationships, but family interpersonal relationships still help you to paint the picture of what's going on because these individuals do it with their family first before they do it to their partner, okay? So let's give an example of a dad. And let's say he has 2 adult children and they both are female, just so it's easier to differentiate between him. Let's say he is dismissive avoidant and he has 2 daughters, okay? Let's say one daughter is, maybe she's avoidant or maybe she's secure. That one doesn't really matter. But the other one, she's anxious. That one matters more. And I'm going to explain why. Okay. Let's say this dad, I don't know. Let's say he's short on money, which he himself, he's very prideful that he doesn't like to ask for help. But with his kids or people he's close with, he thinks he can get away with. Now, let's say his secure / avoidant, whichever one daughter, the non-anxious daughter, okay? He never asks her for money. And he doesn't ever try to slither his way to get money either. There's a couple reasons why. One, unfortunately, he respects her. He doesn't want to look less in front of this daughter. He wants to seem like, the dad that's really on top of things that he is. He doesn't want to show that side. He respects her. He values her more, unfortunately. The other daughter, he knows because she's anxious in his mind. It's not that he thinks, oh, she's anxious attached, that he can get away with it. That's not what he's thinking. But what he's thinking is, this daughter, she's not going to really stand up to me, or even if she gets mad at me, she's still going to stick around. I'm not going to lose her. And so, I'll give her a call, and he might call and say, Dad's really short on funds. I'm really trying to make it work. All I had today was like a McDonald's cheeseburger. I'm starving. What am I going to eat for dinner? So he's not directly asking her, but he's kind of trying to manipulate her, right? And he knows that she's going to be like, oh my God, my dad's starving. Hey, you want me to Zelle you or transfer you $20 and you can go get yourself a pizza, whatever, right? And so why did I give you that example? Because it sounds pretty silly. Believe it or not, if you're a therapist and you work with avoidant patients, they do this with their kids and with their wives and whoever else they're with. Some avoidants are they do manipulate people. They do. And why did he only do it to one daughter? We already talked about it. He thinks that if he asked the other daughter, the one who's secure or avoidant in this example, she's going to say, especially if she's avoidant, she's going to say, I thought that you could handle yourself. You're a grown man. I expect better of you. Is this really what's going on? What she might pry into a different direction, right? What's going on with your finances? How are you able to pay your rent? She's going to break down the story because, okay, if you don't have any food for dinner, how are you paying your rent? Like, how does that logically make sense? She may break it down that way. While he may have an explanation, he's likely going to crack. And so he knows that the anxious individual might not ask those types of questions. Now, so that's very important to recognize that if you are sturdy and you do show that you are worthy of being respected, which all of you are worthy of respect, by the way, but sometimes you don't think you are subconsciously, but you are, every single one of you. Avoidant individuals will be much less likely to manipulate you because they don't think they're going to get away with it, okay? So the very first one is they ask you a very simple favor that they could easily do themselves, but sometimes they do it to see how much leverage that they have. Truly, right? Hey, by the way, can you pick up milk on the way back or when you're coming back home from work? One favor, that's fine, but then it starts escalating. Oh, by the way, I've been really busy. If you could pick up some groceries and drop it off. My key's under the mat. So now it's getting a little bit bigger. And then they may ask other things. I ran out of gas money. I promise I'll pay you back. But if not, we're a couple, so it doesn't matter if you could send me some gas money. It's starting to grow and grow and grow because they realize, okay, I can get away with it. You're not going to speak up to me. So it's really important. If you notice this, the first time or a couple times is okay, but eventually put your foot down. You've been asking a lot of favors. Is something okay financially? You don't even have to say stop doing it. You could just cut through the whatever their stories they're making up, right? You can ask, you've been asking a lot of favors or you've been asking for gas money a lot. What's going on? Like, are you having trouble budgeting? I don't have that kind of money for you right now, but what's going on? I can help you sort your finances out. Whatever it may be, usually if you just confront them, they're probably not going to ask you again. The next one is they tell you what you want to hear instead of the truth. Now, a lot of avoidant individuals don't realize that this is manipulative. A lot of avoidant individuals, and if you have been avoidant or you are avoidant, you fall under this trap simply because you're afraid of somebody else's response, but that is still not fair because you are lying to them and you manipulate them to believe something that's not true. So why do avoidant individuals do this? Typically, it's because they're afraid of your reaction. And so obviously, an avoidant individual should not be doing this, but another way to kind of help make it easier is to manage your own reaction. Sometimes if you feel like your reactions are a little bit too strong, maybe you can try to dial it down a little bit. And if you notice that they're not being honest with you, instead of being angry about it, you could say, I know sometimes I'm a lot, but that doesn't mean I want you to lie to me. Please be honest with me. Do I look X, Y, and Z? Or does my paper sound bad? Or do you think I'm going to fail? Whatever your question is, be direct about it, and they will be more likely to open up and trust you. The next one, and I see this more often with, like in dating situations. I don't see this really at all with relationships. And it's if they string you along to keep you interested without the intention of being honest with you. Now, if you're with an avoidant for a long time and they haven't put a label on it, that's not what I'm saying. This is not what this is. Because if they're with you for a long time, then obviously they're very serious about you and they're not manipulating you. They're just afraid. But if they're in the dating phase and they're stringing you along or saying, let's meet at this time, and then later they say something came up, I can't do it, or whatever reason, or they're in a relationship and they're saying, we're going to break up or we're separated, but it feels like they're not, or they're very invested in that relationship and they just keep you just to have some outlet. And you will probably know if this is happening, but I've actually made a couple videos about if an avoidant is interested in you or not. So you can look at that to kind of help you highlight if this is what's happening. But that's a very manipulative behavior, right? And it's because they don't want to lose you. So often the best way to express this is to voice your actual concerns. I noticed that you've been canceling on me a lot. What's the reason that's going on? I want to make it work with you, but if you're going to keep canceling, I don't know if I can do this. When is the next time that we can genuinely meet? And I want you to be honest with me. Are there barriers? What's going on? Just something like that. You can even ask, is there somebody else? Because I don't feel like you're giving me your full attention. Whatever you need to do to kind of cut through whatever they're trying to cover. It's very important to confront a lot of these individuals because that's kind of what shows them they can't get away with it anymore, right? The next one is they pay close attention to your finances to see if they can make deals or start a startup with you. This one is probably really specific, but you would be shocked how often I see this, where they think, oh, they don't realize they're being manipulative, but it is manipulative. They're thinking, okay, I can't get a deal like this with anybody else, but because we're in a relationship, maybe he or she will give me a discount. Or maybe I can get some percentages out of their business. Or, oh, my partner's doing really well. Maybe I can get more gifts or presents. And they don't recognize, like I had mentioned earlier in this video, because they're so, they think about themselves so much, they don't realize that they're using other people. And so if they're doing this, you can say it in a way where it doesn't have to push them away necessarily. But if they say, hey, how do you feel about putting my name on the house, considering I stay with you sometimes? You could mention, I don't see that as a possibility. If we get married, then that's a different story. But I don't see why I would put your name on my house, right? Like, I've paid this, I put the down payment. I know that you're staying and you do plan on moving in with me, but I still don't see how that's going to, that's going to fly. If you're putting some money towards rental, maybe, but I still don't see that as a possibility. I don't even expect you to pay rent, whatever your conversation is, but you don't want them to gain leverage out of you just because they know that you care about them. That's never something that you want. So you have to be very careful with this. They pay attention to your finances, especially those that are manipulative. Avoidants tend to, not even in a bad way, but they do tend to pick partners that are financially well off because they perceive that somebody who's financially well off to be emotionally stable. And so it doesn't mean that they're trying to use you for money, but they may find this as an opportunity, which in some ways is using. I don't know if that made sense, but try to pay attention what they're trying to do with your finances and what they're trying to control, because avoidant individuals, they can be controlling as well. Okay. So those are 4 things to remember if an avoidant is trying to manipulate you. Go ahead, like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.